Welcome to the Ivory Tower. I'm Raquel Jeremiah.
And I'm Brittany Shanahan. On today's program, we'll discuss the current state of the electric car in Australia.
And to help us, we have two experts, Moran Ekkasabi from Swinburne University, Senior Lecturer of Robotics and Mechatronics, and Justin Harding from the Australian Electric Vehicle Association. Thank you for joining us, Moran and Justin.
You're welcome.
But before we begin with technicalities, let's have a look at a short history of the electric car and what's happening with the electric vehicle today. Here's Jemima Clegg with her report.
The first successful electric vehicle was built by Scottish-American chemist William Morrison in 1891. In 1897, a fleet of electric taxis began operating in New York City. By 1900, a third of all cars in major US cities were electric. Many preferred EVs to gasoline and steam-powered cars as they were cleaner and easier to operate. In 1900, Henry Ford released the Model T, a mass-produced petrol-powered vehicle that was much cheaper than an electric car. By the 1920s, EVs were practically extinct due to the low price of oil and the need for more powerful vehicles that could travel longer distances. In the 1960s and 70s, alternatives to foreign oil were highly sought, and a number of car companies produced electric vehicles. In 1988, General Motors funded the production of a practical consumer electric car. The EV1 was a battery-powered car that could travel up to 128 kilometres. In 1997, the first commercial hybrid car was introduced in Japan, the Toyota Prius. Engineering students from Swinburne University build an electric race car every year. I spoke to some of the students about their vehicle.
The main differences between our vehicle and the petrol vehicle is obviously it's electric. So we have batteries in our side pods and a large electric motor in the rear. Unfortunately, our vehicle takes a fair while to charge. You can't just put petrol into it, but given about 4 hours of charge time, we can do about 50 kilometres at race speed.
Dr. Clint Steele from Swinburne says the team recently switched from building a petrol-powered vehicle to the electric race car.
There's two reasons for moving towards electric vehicle research. One is that there are environmental benefits, and it's for that reason that the government is interested in funding these areas. So it's an opportunity for any academic researcher to move into electric vehicles. It's also a unique niche, so we saw the opportunity and we decided that we were going to become the best within that area within Australia.
So are EVs more environmentally friendly?
Yeah, definitely. It all comes down to where you're getting your initial source from. You've got to make sure that that's renewable as well. So, but definitely, as long as you kind of follow it, whether you use solar or wind or something like that, renewable. Yeah.
Currently, we charge off the grid through industrial power, but we also actually offset all of our emissions through carbon offsetting with the planting of trees.
Today, with the rising price of oil and high concern about carbon emissions, alternatives to petrol-powered cars are becoming more popular, and more car companies are offering hybrid and electric cars. But can the electric car fulfil the promise from a century ago?
Thanks to Jemima Clegg for that report. So what do you think about that? Do you think that battery power may become the most dominant energy source?
I think it has a very good chance to become the most popular drivetrain source for vehicles. Certainly costs are coming down and efficiencies are increasing, and certainly the environmental benefits of electric vehicles will make them more and more attractive in the coming years.
Yes, I think the battery-operated electric vehicles can be a very potential one, especially with the technology improvement. We have colleagues in other universities who are working on electric vehicle battery, especially on the battery, and trying to improve the performance up to 10 times. So if that is the thing, we will be having no problem with the battery to be used for the electric vehicle.
The electric car has been on the scene for quite some time now. Do you think, why do you think past ventures into the electric car haven't succeeded as well as what you would have thought?
I think there's a combination of factors, partly the technology, particularly batteries, where until recently lead-acid batteries was really the main technology used, which is certainly heavy and has limitations. Cost-wise, fossil fuels were traditionally a lot cheaper. There wasn't the incentive to look at alternative technologies, and I think politically there maybe was not a full understanding of the potential of electric vehicles and any drivers for their support.
Yes, in this line I think we are improving on technology, and as the technology improves we can come to cheaper solutions. and cheaper, more compact, and better range. Thing is that if we consider the history of the vehicles, we see that the internal combustion engine was there for a very long time, but very little improvement. But in last few years, we can see that improvement on electric vehicle has improved.
Do you think the research that we've seen from the Swinburne electric car team will help bring that technology to the forefront and to the mainstream car industry?
Well, we are hoping that that is happening. In fact, when we started the group, electric vehicle group in Swinburne, we try to not focus on one problem, but on overall the structure of the electric vehicle and all the aspects of electric vehicle. We try to see that what are the bottlenecks in the problem of electric vehicle, and we try to get all the aspects of electric vehicle, as I mentioned. We had we are looking not only on the drivetrain but also on the control aspects, the structure, as well as the materials which are used, the battery charging, the infrastructure which will be required for later on, and these are all the research aspects that we are having and we are focusing on.
I think that's a very important point, that research into electric vehicles goes far beyond just the battery and the motor, because electric vehicles require a real rethink of the entire car and its design. A battery pack holds the energy equivalent of only a couple of litres of petrol, so you've got to do a lot with a very small amount. So everything that can help with efficiency, lightweight materials, aerodynamics, control systems, batteries and motors, and all the accessories in the car, lighting, heating, cooling, all become very important.
As Justin has mentioned, the thing is that electric vehicle group in Swinburne is not focusing only on battery operated electric vehicle, but also on alternative fuels also. That is the thing which may be bringing later on a better choice of having a better vehicle, not only a battery electric vehicle, but alternative fuels as the substitute.
When we return, we'll be discussing how to convert a petrol car and see how it's all done. So don't go away.
Welcome back to the Ivory Tower. Our reporter Nick Bartholomew's investigated electric car conversions and spoke with Reese Freeman from Ceres to get a better understanding of what's involved. Here's Nick's report.
Petrol prices just seem to keep going up, and many of us would like to escape paying at the petrol bowser. However, few can afford a brand new LPG gas or electric car. But what if there was a way to convert your car to an electric car? The cost of petrol or gas would never be an issue again. Reese Freeman is from Ceres, the inner city environment centre in Brunswick. He's been involved in a project to convert a petrol-fuelled Citroen Berlingo to electricity.
Basically, we pull out the existing engine, fuel tank, components like the steering system, a few other bits and pieces that all rely on the old petrol-driven drivetrain, and we replace them with electric equivalents, a battery pack, which means we have to organise a battery box for the batteries, and an electric motor and replacements for the old systems. So something else that drives power steering instead, and things like that.
When converting a petrol-fuelled car, it is much easier to convert a car of manual transmission.
An electric car doesn't need to run all the time. It would be more efficient to use a manual for that reason, because you don't have to run the motor all the time. With an automatic, you would have to continually run the motor.
According to Reese, the smaller the vehicle, the harder it is to convert.
A vehicle that's bigger is more likely to have space for batteries that you can utilise without restructuring lots of the car. A smaller one is less likely to have space.
After almost a year and a half of work, Reese and his team converted the Citroen to run at an average of $4.50 for every 150 kilometres driven, creating a zero-emissions car.
So do you think this task can be realistically achieved by workshops around the country?
I think it can be. There's certainly a long way to go in developing the industry. It is very small at the moment. But if you look to countries like the US and Europe, they're certainly much more established industries. Already in Australia, there's some commercial companies converting petrol cars to electric, done as a business very professionally, and there's a series of smaller workshops as well as individuals converting their own cars. So I think if the demand is there, there's no reason why the supply can't be as well.
Well, in the educational systems, especially like Swinburne, we thought that what will be the future need. I think I said that the conversion of electric vehicle requires a little bit of technical aspects, knowledge of technical aspects, and of course after that we need to know that how to do the servicing. We have started looking onto preparing a program, a teaching program for technicians around around Australia, especially in Victoria. We have started developing 2 courses, one on retrofitting and conversion, another one for servicing, because both of these aspects are supposed to be looked after when we are looking at the long run and we have many users on road.
Do you think a government incentive will encourage consumers to look at getting an electric vehicle?
I think it definitely will. That's certainly been the experience overseas, where many countries have either a tax credit or an upfront rebate for the purchase of electric vehicles. Australia stands out as one country that doesn't currently have any incentives, but there's certain models it could follow. For instance, rebates that were given to LPG conversions, rebates given for installing solar panels, for example. That kind of model could well be applied to electric vehicles, and I think would really help the uptake.
Yeah, we see it all over the world that this is happening, and we have the governments supporting or providing incentive for the users so that they will be getting the knowledge and education about the use of electric vehicle and its advantages. Many countries have started with few $1,000s rebate, as well as and in some other countries it has gone for maybe $10,000s of dollars, and that is the thing.
Overall, how do you think society will benefit from the introduction of the electric car into the mainstream car industry?
There's probably 2 main ways that I see: environmental and economic. Electric vehicles mean if you recharge them on renewable energy, which it seems to be the way most people want to use them, you can have a very beneficial result on all sorts of emissions, greenhouse gas emissions included. And I think the economic benefits will really start to become evident in the next few years as oil prices probably continue to increase. It's a way to break the dependence on a lot of imports that cost Australia quite a lot. So I think the overall economy can actually become more efficient and benefit from electric vehicles.
Well, on electric vehicle, we can say that we are having 0 emission as far as the running of the vehicle is concerned, but overall performance of the electric vehicle, even when we are using the coil as the power generation, main source of power generation, we see that the efficiency of the electric vehicle is almost twice that of the internal combustion engine. That will cause twice benefit as far as using the same resources are concerned. If we go for renewables and renewable energy, naturally this will be leading to very sustainable system and zero emission overall.
After the break, we'll explore the problems with the electric car and what needs to be done to overcome them. We'll be right back. There are a number of reasons why people don't drive electric cars. Let's take a look at some of the reasons. Hannah Loy reporting.
The steady increase in global oil prices is causing more pain for Australians at the bowser. A combination of supply constraints, increasing prices and environmental concern has many looking for other solutions.
The electric car could solve our reliance on oil and provide an environmentally friendly way to travel. So far, we've looked at the benefits of the transition to electric cars and how to convert standard cars to electric power. However, Despite the wide range of benefits an electric car could provide, there are still problems facing its development.
Electric cars still cost too much. Some also argue that electric cars provide no real benefit to the environment when they rely on high levels of fossil fuels to provide electricity and also manufacture their battery. We asked the public if they are willing to use electric cars in the near future.
I like the idea of electric cars, but I wouldn't buy one just because it takes too long to charge, and I think there's a lot more they can do to perfect it.
I looked into hybrid cars to buy, and it's more of a question that we really don't get the range. So maybe if they had a longer range, that would be something we'd consider.
The most serious problem is their range. New electric vehicles such as the Nissan Leaf have a maximum range of 117 kilometres, making them impractical for country driving. To charge these vehicles takes around 8 hours, so if you get stuck in the middle of nowhere, plan for a long stay. We spoke to lecturer Dr. Shen at Swinburne University.
My research actually is concentrated on the battery program for the electrical car. So what I'm doing here is battery capacity indicator and the battery management system and the battery charging facility. So our job is, number one, we try to develop accurate, reliable battery indicator for the electric car, which is similar to the oil gauge in the conventional car. So the driver can be confident in the indicator and which can predict the driving distance confidently.
Thanks to Hannah Louie for that report. So what are your concerns with the battery technology in electric cars?
Well, I think the concerns for a lot of consumers at the moment are around the range of the vehicle, that perhaps an electric car can't replace their current car with a 500 kilometre range. Now, part of that is educational, to realise the limitations of an electric vehicle and where it's applicable, and it may not be able to replace every car at the moment. But I think the technology is advancing so quickly in terms of batteries that it won't be long before electric cars are available with several hundred kilometres of range, and there's probably, you'd be able to buy a more expensive car with a greater range or a smaller car with a lesser range, and you could tailor that to your own needs.
Well, as far as the battery is concerned and battery-operated electric vehicle is concerned, there are few concerns of the consumers. Consumers think of the range of using of the vehicle. So far, the normal technology gives around 150 kilometers per charge, whereas in some other countries like Japan, they have worked on the range of the battery-operated electric vehicle, and they have gone to 350 kilometers, which is comparable to the usual cars that we are having. Increasing the range is one of the bottlenecks, and it is one of the research concern. The other concern which is there is the cost of the battery. The consumers are usually thinking that the cost of the battery and the replacement of the battery is difficult, and it is too costly to have an electric vehicle. The technology is improving. From last few years, we have seen that the cost of the battery has reduced to less than half, and the performance and the range of using the battery has increased to twice. So we are 4 times better in the last few years. One more, and the concerns for the researcher is the power need for electric vehicles. This requires infrastructure, revision of the way that we charge and discharge, and of course, in some special cases, researchers are working on using the battery, which is having a power in the electric vehicle, to be connected to the grid, so that if we are not using that power, it can be supplied back to the grid for those who are using it. So there are many researches which are going on this area.
So my question is, do you think the cost of electric vehicles is one of the major concerns with consumers? Do you think that that will prevent people from buying electric vehicles?
I think at the moment it definitely is a barrier. On the commercial market, an electric vehicle may cost you twice as much as a comparable petrol car. Now, a lot of that doesn't necessarily reflect the underlying cost of the components. For example, The electric motor and the controller probably cost about the same as the petrol engine. The difference might be the battery cost. But I think car companies at the moment are putting a price premium onto their electric vehicles to recover some of their R&D expenditure, and also because it is a niche market and they want to price them in a certain way. So I expect that once demand for electric vehicles builds and the production numbers increase, the cost will become quite comparable to current cars.
So you're hopeful for the electric car and its future?
Oh, very much so. I think it's got a very bright future. Already it's becoming a reality. It's no longer something for the future. The question now is about the continued development of that technology, introduction of new technologies through all the R&D that's happening. We may get a new generation of batteries that'll be cheaper and last longer.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to see that electric vehicle is improving, and it is going to be substituting the normal fuels, internal combustion engine.
So thank you, Moran, and thank you, Justin, for joining us today.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us on the Ivory Tower. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.